Let's get it. 580 Sports Talk is live and direct on a Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, one and all. Thanks so much for being with us for the next 3 hours here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. However, wherever, whenever you're hearing the program today, thanks so much for tuning in, being part of the audience on 580 Sports Talk. My name is Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis will be along in a little bit. Brendan Dworzinski is off today. No sense in dragging out the pleasantries. Today, seismic news out of Manhattan. Chris Klieman calling it a coaching career, retiring after spending the last 7 seasons at the helm of the Kansas State football program, winning 54 games, making 6 bowl games in 7 seasons, and in 2022, becoming just the 3rd coach in Kansas State football history to win a Big 12 championship. Klieman announcing his retirement. It was made official about 45 minutes ago via press release from Kansas State Athletics. Klieman and Athletic Director Gene Taylor will hold a press conference in the 4 o'clock hour today to answer the question we've already received on our YouTube live chat and on our text line. We will carry in its entirety the Chris Klieman press conference. We will go live to Manhattan. It is a scheduled 4 o'clock start time, and Taylor Brait, I'm not exactly 100% sure, actually, off the top of my head. I'm not looking at the press release right this second, but Taylor Brait, obviously heavily involved in recruiting for Kansas State. He will take to the podium first. He will take questions about today's National Signing Day and talk about some of the recruits that have committed to the Kansas State football program that, for the moment, does not have a head coach. And after Brait is done at the podium, and be frank, I don't know how long he's going to go. At that point, Chris Klieman and Athletic Director Gene Taylor will come to the podium, and they will make statements and take questions. And we will air that in its entirety in the 4 o'clock hour here today on 580 Sports Talk. Not the show we woke up, thought we were going to do today, but it is the show we have been given based upon the news today. Not only does Kansas State's head coach retire, it does appear that they have their next head coach waiting in the wings. Multiple reports suggesting, and Mike Elko, the head coach at Texas A&M, not going very far to deny those reports today, though did not directly confirm them, that Texas A&M offensive coordinator and, of course, former Kansas State offensive coordinator and starting quarterback on a Big 12 championship team, Collin Klein, is in line to succeed Chris Klieman as the next K-State football head coach. That's a lot to digest. And we're going to talk about it from every angle today. Plenty to discuss as regards to this retirement announcement. Why it's not shocking. Surprising, but not shocking would be how I would describe the announcement today. We'll talk about why that is. We'll talk about why Collin Klein is the right guy at the right time for Kansas State. Really and truly, this feels like a day that is a best case scenario for all parties involved, except maybe Texas A&M, who loses a pretty darn good offensive coordinator. They got plenty of money in the banana stand. They'll find another good one. But for Kansas State, for Collin Klein, and I think even for Chris Klieman, what has happened today, what is unfolding today is, I think, for the best. And we'll talk about why that is. We'll ask some questions, and maybe we'll get some insight on them when we do hear from the now former head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. But we'll idly speculate. Chris Klieman called it a retirement in his press release today. Coaches come out of retirement all the time. All the time. Coaches get out on the golf course like, wait a minute, I don't like this. I don't really like golf that much. I'd rather get back out on the golf course. Or get back off the golf course, get back on a sideline. Will we see Coach Chris Klieman on a sideline again? And is Chris Klieman the ultimate best case outcome for being the guy that follows the guy, which you're never supposed to want to be? But Chris Klieman was the guy that followed the guy in Manhattan. and he won a Big 12 championship, which only one other coach before the guy ever managed to do in the decades-long history of Kansas State football. So plenty of reaction today, plus the press conference in its entirety. That's coming in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll hold all tickets for that. We'll play it in its entirety. We will not take a commercial break during the press conference. We will bring it all to you in the 4 o'clock hour here today on 580 Sports Talk. Obviously, the press conference will be occurring while we would normally have Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com on our airwaves for the Wildcat wrap-up. So, we're going to try and connect with Fitz on tomorrow's program. Obviously, he's pretty swamped today, as you would imagine he and the rest of the GPC staff are. So we're going to try and give Fitz a little bit of opportunity to get out of that press release room, collect his thoughts, and we'll talk with him tomorrow about where Kansas State football goes from here today. We got some other things that we will get to on the program. We'll talk a little bit about KU's home loss to UConn last night at Allen Fieldhouse, another valiant effort and proof positive that Kansas is a Darren Peterson away from being a really, really good basketball team. Lucky for them, they have one. And he's on the way back at some point, but he did not play last night. And that's pretty much why Kansas could not hang on to their lead and ended up falling to the 5th-ranked team in America, the UConn Huskies. We'll talk a little bit about that. We'll hear from Andy Reid in the 5 o'clock hour. The Chiefs head coach spoke to the media earlier today. Dire times for the Chiefs offensive line. Josh Simmons headed to IR, has a fractured and dislocated wrist. That doesn't sound fun. He'll miss at least the next 4 games. I remind you, there are only 5 left in the regular season. That's a big, big blow to a Chiefs team that looks on track to start the same offensive line that finished the game on Thanksgiving against the Cowboys. And I know you saw it because 57 million Americans saw it, or however big the number was. I think it was 57.2 million people watched that game. I know you saw what that looked like. Didn't look good. So dire times for that Chiefs offensive line. We'll hear Big Red later on in the show. We'll still have headlines. We'll still do What Is Wrong With You. All that good stuff on the program today. And we want to hear from you, especially K-State fans out there. We want to hear from you today. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. That is 785-272-9429. You can also get at us in the live chat on our YouTube stream. If you're watching the show live, and a lot of you are, thanks for joining us here on 580 Sports Talk on YouTube. 580 Sports Talk is the name of the YouTube channel. If you're checking us out today for the first time, or interested in checking us out today for the first time, smash that subscribe button. We love to have new subscribers on the YouTube stream, and hop into the live chat. Say hello and give us your thoughts on the big news today out of Manhattan. Again, the name of the YouTube channel is 580 Sports Talk. You can also comment on the Facebook stream if you are watching on Facebook. We're on Facebook at WIBW News. First things first, support local journalism, folks. All the heavy hitters out there in college sports media, the Pete Thamels, the Pat Fortys, the Bruce Feldmans, the Brett McMurphys, they all got scooped by the Manhattan Mercury today. Tip of the cap to Ned Seaton. He beat everybody to the story. And it was very funny to see all of those big-name college football reporters backtrack and soft pedal as they, I'm sure, fielded a few angry phone calls from their bosses. How'd you get scooped by the Manhattan Mercury on this one? But they did. Support local journalism, folks. Shout out to the Manhattan Mercury for having the story first. They were the first to report this morning that Chris Klieman was going to retire as the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcat football program, and that Collin Klein is in line to be Klieman's successor. That has been pretty widely confirmed. Billy Liucci of Texags, which is, I don't know if they're on 3 or 24/7. Sometimes I can't keep them straight if they're not the ones that I interact with regularly. But Texags obviously covers the Texas A&M Aggies. He confirmed that Collin Klein was the choice for K-State to succeed Klieman. There was a difference in verbiage floating around. Pete Thamel reported that Klieman was considering stepping down, which there's a difference between that and retirement. There's a finality to retirement. Maybe not really, but at least a feeling of finality to the word retirement that stepping down doesn't quite take on. But Bruce Feldman then reported that it was a retirement, and then it was made official in a press release just about an hour ago that Chris Klieman is retiring from coaching. Here's Klieman's own words from the press release. Quote, after many deep and thoughtful conversations with my family, we've decided that the time is right for me to retire from coaching. This decision was not taken lightly and was the culmination of many factors, including my own personal health. Put a pin in that. I absolutely love coaching the game of football and developing players into young men, but now is the time for me to step away and spend more time with Rhonda and our 3 kids. I truly am thankful to Gene Taylor for trusting me with this program in 2018, and we've accomplished many great things, including winning the 2022 Big 12 championship. K-State will always be a special part of our family's story, and we will forever be Wildcats. Gene Taylor's portion of the press release, quote from the athletic director. This has been an emotional day for myself, my family, and Coach Klieman. Our friendship and family go back to when we first started working together at North Dakota State. Chris Klieman has built a program and culture that embodies what it means to be a K-Stater. Following a legend was no easy task, and he quickly established himself as one of the best coaches in the Big 12 Conference and one of the most successful in our program's history. He's a special person. We've been fortunate to have him leading the young men in our program and being a first-class representative of Kansas State University. I will miss being able to work with Coach Klieman on a daily basis, and it has been an honor to do so the last several years. We wish him, Rhonda, and the kids all the success and happiness they desire as they enter the next phase of their lives. Kansas State University President Dr. Richard Linton also quoted in the press release, Coach Klieman is a person of tremendous character, and I appreciate his passion for his players and their success. Chris is a K-State Wildcat to his core. I am grateful for his dedication and leadership of our football program, and I wish Chris and his family well. The first line in the K-State coaching career epitaph for Chris Klieman is this. Chris Klieman proved that there could be life after Bill Snyder for K-State football. And that was not something that you could take for granted when it became clear that Snyder's second tenure in Manhattan had to come to an end. Whether it was under Snyder's own terms or whether somebody had to remove him from his seat, which in the end is kind of what ended up happening. There was no guarantee that Kansas State football was ever going to look the same again. Because Snyder had already left once, and Ron Prince had made such a mess of things in such a short time. And the standard that Bill Snyder had set for Kansas State football had so dramatically dropped off in such a short time frame that Snyder himself had to come back and recover what had been lost and build it back up again. So it was fair to wonder if it was even possible to keep the program at the same level that Bill Snyder had taken it to. And Chris Klieman did it. It was not the most popular hire. I was around when it happened. I remember the reaction to Chris Klieman being hired. And there were a lot of people who believed that the only reason he got the gig, never mind his incredible success at the FCS level, including 4 national championships as the head coach at North Dakota State University. No, the only reason he got the job is because he was Gene Taylor's buddy. I remember that. I was around for that. And so it was with consternation that I think people went into the Chris Klieman era with skepticism, with one eyebrow cocked, wondering what would come next for Kansas State football. Chris Klieman won people over right away. Right away. People still wear T-shirts that say, win the dang day. That was Kleiman's first day on campus. That was the first time he addressed his football team. That was the first viral moment for Kansas State football, because let's be real honest about Bill Snyder. You weren't getting viral moments with Bill Snyder, right? But that first time he spoke to his team and we saw behind the scenes what kind of man, what kind of leader Chris Klieman was, and he talked about winning that dang day, he won people over right from the jump. And he won a lot of football games. No Big 12 team won more games the last 7 years than Kansas State did. They won 54 games. And again, in 2022, Chris Klieman did what only 2 other coaches in the century-plus history of Kansas State football have ever done: win a conference championship. If that was easy to do, freaking Stan Parrish would have done it, right? If this was a plug-and-play, roll the ball out and win 10 games every year kind of program, it wouldn't have needed a Bill Snyder. Chris Klieman took over the program. And let's be frank about what it was becoming in the last couple of seasons under Bill Snyder. They missed a bowl in Snyder's last year. The quality was beginning to slip. The standard was beginning to slip. Chris Klieman built that puppy right back up and made Kansas State into a Big 12 championship program again. That's line one. That's where you start with Chris Klieman. He was the guy that followed the guy, which is the hardest thing to be as a coach. And he succeeded. But there is the flip side. There is the last 2 years of Kansas State football, full of diminishing returns, unmet expectations, unanswered questions, and an increasingly frustrated fan base who felt like, once again, the lofty standards for Kansas State football were beginning to slip. And so Kansas State was entering this offseason, even though they still have a bowl game to play. They were going to enter this offseason as a program at a crossroads, rather than one with a clear identity and a clear plan for the future. That's a tough place to be. In modern college football, you stay stuck at the crossroads too long, you get left behind. Look what's happened to Clemson. Look what's happened to Oklahoma State. Look what's happened to Florida. Programs that have reached their crossroad moments and either not acted decisively or made the wrong decision. You get left behind. It happens in a hurry. And Kansas State was in danger, staying at a crossroads at a time when other programs in the Big 12 seem poised to blow by them. That's true, too. That's part of the Chris Klieman story, too, these last 2 years. There is not any indication, either publicly or privately, that Chris Klieman was being forced into retirement. And that's why I say at the top of the show, I was not shocked to hear the news today. There have been other coaching retirements that I was pretty shocked to hear. If we can go to different sports, like Jay Wright retiring at Vanderbilt blew me away. Didn't see that coming. Tony Bennett retiring at Virginia. I know we're doing college basketball here, but those were pretty stunning. Those were shocking. I absolutely could have seen a future for Kansas State football that did not include Chris Klieman as the head coach. But I could not see a future that involved Chris Klieman being fired as Kansas State's head coach. If he wasn't going to be the head coach anymore, it was going to be because he decided he didn't want to be. And honestly, he earned that. I believe he earned that. Even with the disappointment of the last 2 years, I thought Chris Klieman, I said it on the program as recently as Monday, I believed that Chris Klieman had earned the right to decide whether he ought to be the head coach that makes the changes that need to be made to keep Kansas State modern and move it forward into its next era. And I am not surprised, not shocked, I guess. There is an element of surprise. Chris Kleiman's a proud guy. Chris Klieman has a streak of defiance to him. You heard it in, well, gosh, every one of his press conferences this season. But I was not shocked today to hear that Chris Klieman would stand aside and retire. And it feels like the opportune time. And like I said, for everybody involved, this feels like the opportune time. It feels like the right time for Kansas State to change the face of its program. It seems like they have the absolute perfect replacement lined up. I'm not sure there was a plan B in Manhattan. And we'll get into this a little bit more later on. But I'm not sure there was a plan B. I think the head coaches next year were either going to be Collin Klein or Chris Klieman. It was going to be A or B. It was going to be one of those two. And if Klieman wasn't going to be the guy, it had to be Collin Klein. And this is the last offseason that Kansas State was going to be able to get Collin Klein without prying him away for another head coaching job, particularly if the reports that Klein was the first choice at South Florida, USF, are to be believed. And I think that they are. Again, I'll expand on why a little bit later on. But for a Kansas State athletics fan base who went through one Brad Underwood situation, they did not want to abide a second. Could not have abided a second. Not for someone as beloved as Collin Klein. This was the time, this was the offseason where it would cost the least to buy him out and make the most sense to bring him back to Manhattan. But at the end of the day, I can't help but feel, and I'll be fascinated to hear from Klieman, which, again, we will do in the 4 o'clock hour. We will play the press conference from Manhattan live on the program today in the 4 o'clock hour. So stay tuned for that. I will be interested. Obviously, this is not a visual medium, so you'll be hearing it, but I'll be watching it. And I'll be fascinated to see if Chris Klieman maybe looks a little bit lighter. And I don't mean in the sense of like a number on a scale. I think Chris Klieman was ground down to a nub by this season and maybe by last season. You go back to that press conference after the Utah game, which now all of a sudden, in the context of the news that is broken today, it really reframes that press conference or ought to for a lot of people, right? But I remember thinking as I watched that there was more to that response, that devastation, that heartbreak that Chris Klieman laid bare after the Utah game. There was more to that than just being 5-6. And there was more to that than people are being mean on the internet. Felt like there was more going on. And then in the press release today, you have the allusion to Chris Klieman's physical health, his own allusion to his own physical health. And again, nothing's been concretely reported on that one way or another. But there was that game where he did have to leave the sidelines. There was that other game where it looked like he was going to pass out on the sidelines. Heard independently from people who follow the program that he's just looked tireder this year, looked more worn out this year. Certainly hope that there is no long-term ailment or health concern that Chris Klieman is dealing with. But of all the jobs to take a physical and mental toll on you, college football coach pretty high up there. And so my hope is that this is good for Chris Klieman, the person, just as I believe it is good for Kansas State as a football program, just as I believe it's perfect timing for Collin Klein, the football coach. I hope that today's announcement is good for Chris Klieman, the man, because he's a damn good man and a damn good football coach, and Kansas State was lucky to have him. We'll take our first time out here on 580 Sports Talk. When we come back, Collin Klein, right guy, right place, right time. Plus, want your reaction. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. Also, going to check out the YouTube comments as well. 580 Sports Talk on YouTube, WIBW News on Facebook. Weigh in today on the big news. Chris Klieman retiring from coaching after 7 seasons at Kansas State. We're back after this with more. We're just getting started on this Wednesday edition of 580 Sports Talk. 3:32 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero hanging out with you on this Wednesday. Chris Klieman has called it a coaching career, stepping aside after 7 years, 54 wins, 6 bowl appearances, and 1 Big 12 football championship brought back to Manhattan. Press conference coming up at 4 o'clock. Taylor Brait will speak first about the K-State signing class. Today is National Signing Day, and I must confess to feeling a little bit bad for the kids who signed their national letters of intent to play at Kansas State today, whose big day is being overshadowed by much larger news as it pertains to the football program. Regarding that, this is what I think happened today. And Kellis Robinette of the Wichita Eagle Kansas City Star has kind of confirmed this is what happened today. I think Chris Klieman wanted a couple of days to make sure of his decision one way or another before he had to call a press conference or not call a press conference, just keep it moving, decide whether he was going to retire or not. I think it was entirely his choice whether he came back for next year. I think you go back and you watch that Utah press conference again. That looks like a coach who's ready to not be coaching anymore. Not because he didn't love his players, just maybe physically, maybe mentally, maybe health-wise, just maybe not ready to continue. And knowing maybe in his heart at that time he wasn't going to continue as the coach of the Wildcats. I certainly think they wanted to get through today. Look, they had an 11 a.m. press conference scheduled for today about National Signing Day. The anticipation, the notification we all got as media members from Kansas State football earlier this week was, 11 a.m. press conference, National Signing Day. Oh, yeah, that makes sense. Klieman's going to talk about the guys that have signed. This was accelerated timing. You had the report, and it was Billy Liucci of Texags who reported it first, that USF, who today apparently are moving forward with hiring Ohio State offensive coordinator Brian Hartline as their next head coach after their previous head coach Alex Golesh took the Auburn job. The report was that USF wanted Klein and was going to hire Collin Klein. And I think that Collin Klein would much rather have been the head coach at Kansas State than at USF. And if something like what has been announced today has been percolating a little bit, like, is it so far-fetched to think that Gene Taylor and Chris Klieman, who are, again, the best of friends, have maybe had some conversations the last, even if it's just been the last week or two, where Chris Klieman may have indicated, man, I don't know if I'm coming back. I don't know if I'm going to do this another year. I think I might step aside. And Kansas State's obviously got to get their ducks in a row when it comes to, severance package, things of that nature, because Klieman's under contract through 2032, signed a big contract extension not long ago. So they got to figure out how to make that right and what they've got to do there. But if Gene Taylor knows that there's a chance he's going to have a head coaching vacancy, well, you got to move on that, because this was obviously a very busy coaching carousel. It remains a very busy coaching carousel. So I'm sure that the word got out one way or another to Collin Klein, hey, there might be an opening here at Kansas State. We can't confirm that yet. But if we have an opening, no questions asked, we want you and we want to make it happen. And Collin Klein said, oh, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. I would love to be the head coach of my alma mater. Mama called and I'm coming home. But when USF makes a head coaching offer, that means Collin Klein's got to ring back to Gene Taylor and Kansas State and say, hey, look, I got to know. You got to tell me, because I don't want to tell USF no and then wait for a job that doesn't come, and then I got to spend another year not being a head coach when I feel like I'm ready to go be a head coach. I think that's how it unfolded. I do. It was very funny that Brett McMurphy reported from a source that said USF insists that Hartline was always their first choice as their new head coach, which is not a thing you need to say if it's true. You don't need to say that. You don't need to put that out there. You don't need to make sure somebody with as big a megaphone as Brett McMurphy says that out loud, if that's in fact true. So I think that's the version of events. I think Kansas State was going to give Klieman through the week to make up his mind, and then they didn't have a week, and they had to do it today. I saw some people out there on social media. They were mad at the Manhattan Mercury for leaking the story. They didn't leak anything. They broke the news. Because, again, if it's as far down the road with Collin Klein as all indications are that it is, this isn't something that just came together this morning. This is breaking news. This is not a leak. As it pertains to Collin Klein, nobody knows if a first-time head coach is going to be good at the gig until they actually do it, right? You don't know until you know. Being a head coach is way different than being an offensive coordinator. It is your show. Everything from what uniforms the players wear, what you do at practice, scheme, hiring assistants, recruiting. It is all your show. And there are some great coordinators who could not handle wearing the big hat sitting in the big chair. And there are some coordinators who made that transition no problem. I don't know yet which one Collin Klein is going to be. I'm lying if I say I do. You're lying if you say you do. But I know this. All the pieces seem to be in place here for Collin Klein to be a resounding success. For one, everybody in Manhattan loves him. Like, the next negative thing you hear somebody say about Collin Klein will probably be the first. I know that's the case for me. The next person I hear who says, yeah, I like that Collin Klein fellow, be the first one, maybe in world history. He is beloved in Manhattan. And we were talking about this yesterday. It was in the context of the basketball team, men's basketball, and their awful loss to Bowling Green on Monday night. And in the context of the previous 2 seasons of missing the NCAA tournament, and in the context of 2 straight seasons of disappointment or underachieving, certainly, for Kansas State football, that the Kansas State fan, and look, there's lots of there's good things happening in the Kansas State athletic department. Like, I don't want to slough off the fact that volleyball is going to play in the NCAA tournament. Women's basketball went to the Sweet 16 last year. Women's soccer's on the rise. Baseball's in a good spot. Obviously, the donations are in a good space. The facilities are being upgraded. Like, lots of good things are happening with regards to that athletic department. But if you're talking about being a fan of the athletic department, you're talking about the revenue sports, the front porch sports, football and men's basketball. If you are a K-State fan following football and men's basketball, hasn't been a whole lot of fun the last couple of years. I have to believe that today, and the day when Collin Klein is officially introduced as Kansas State's new head football coach, will be days that reinvigorate the fan base. And more importantly than that, reinvigorate the donor class. Reinvigorate the kind of people who might be inclined to sign their name to a check. That's important. Chris Klieman's final post-game press conference of the regular season devoted some time to talking about the realities of Kansas State doesn't have as deep a roster as some other programs in the Big 12 because they just don't have the resources that other programs in the Big 12 have. They don't have a Cody Campbell, right? We can all acknowledge that. They don't have even a David Booth. So the donor base has to be engaged, has to be fired up, and it's fair to wonder how engaged and fired up that class of donors would be, those difference-making donors, to say nothing of the kind of folks who might write a $20 check to Cats NIL here and there, or subscribe to Cats Plus when it rolls out in January. That might not be an exorbitant amount of money donated to the athletic department, but that's still your money to Kansas State athletics. You ticket buyers, you ESPN Plus subscribers, those kinds of things. It's hard to get fired up about 8-4 followed by 6-6 when the anticipation both years was you had a team that could go to Arlington and play for a Big 12 championship. Well, now you're fired up again because Collin Klein's coming home. Beloved Collin Klein, who ran a really good offense at Kansas State, and then went to Texas A&M and the big bad SEC and continued to run a really good offense. And not only will it excite the donor class and the fan base, I have to think it excites the players. And not in the sense that they are happy to see Chris Klieman leave. I wouldn't get that sense about any of Kansas State players at all. But I think that players who worked with him, maybe recruited by him, might be pretty excited to see him coming back. Might be more inclined to not get into the transfer portal and explore their options elsewhere. Might even stick around for their senior season and try to see if they can become the quarterback that was promised when they arrived on campus when Collin Klein was their offensive coordinator. Not that I'm talking about any one player in particular. Whether it succeeds or fails will be revealed in due time. I know that's not hot takey enough for sports talk radio, but I'm lying if I tell you I know that Collin Klein's going to knock it out of the park, or I know Collin Klein's going to fall on his face. But everything will be in place for him to be a success. All the elements are there. And I think this is a Kansas State fan base, by and large, that will be very excited to see how that plays out. And again, it is not a done deal. There's no pen to paper, right? There's no, at least to my knowledge, I haven't looked at social media in the last, really since we started the show today. So maybe it is. I don't know. But I heard the press conference of Mike Elko, the head coach at Texas A&M, and he wasn't saying it directly, but he knows he's losing his offensive coordinator. Let me just put it to you that way. That was a man who knows what time it is. So that's happening. The timing is what is unknown. We're going to take another quick break here on 580 Sports Talk. Come back with more, plus your reaction on the text line 785-272-9429 and in the live chat on our YouTube stream, 580 Sports Talk. We're coming back after this. Couple of quick reactions. First from the YouTube live chat, our YouTube channel 580 Sports Talk, streaming live on the program every day. John writes, just my thought, with NIL and the portal, I foresee a scenario where the premier athletes concentrate in the top teams, leaving the rest of the teams to adjust downward competitively. John, I could not disagree with you more on that point. Do you know where the number one quarterback recruit for the class of 2026 is going? He's going to Vanderbilt. Just flipped his commitment yesterday. Number one quarterback recruit in America is going to Vanderbilt. Of the top 10 recruits in the country, the consensus top 10 recruits in the country, they're going to 9 different schools. Maryland is getting one of the top 10 players in the country. The number one overall player in the country is going to Houston. That's not Alabama. That's not Texas. That's not LSU. That's not Ohio State. No, if anything, the NIL and the portal are leveling the playing field. But they're leveling the playing field in favor of who is willing to lay out the most money. And it turns out a lot of college football teams have a lot of wealthy donors who are more than happy to write a big check to see a good football product on Saturdays. Some reaction as well from social media about Chris Klieman's retirement. Picked out a couple of players with local ties, in fact, who have responded on social media. Former Manhattan High defensive tackle, current K-State defensive tackle, Damian Ilalio, tweeting, quote, truly the best example of the selfless and caring leader that I've ever seen, and I'm extremely grateful to have been coached by him over my time in college. It was such an honor to be a part of your football team. Thank you for changing my life. Enjoy retirement, coach. Former Shawnee Heights Thunderbird, former K-State kicker, hero of the 2022 Big 12 championship game, and former NFL punter Ty Zentner tweeting, definition of a player's coach, the 4 core values change the lives of everyone in Vanier. That's the football complex. Thank you for molding me into the person I am today. Love you, coach. Hashtag EMAW. So, some reaction from players, both past and present, for Chris Klieman. Again, we're going to carry the press conference in its entirety here today on 580 Sports Talk. Taylor Bray is set to take the stage at 4 o'clock. He's going to speak about the recruiting class, the signing class on National Signing Day today that Kansas State brought in, including one nifty flip of a running back from Iowa State's class to Kansas State. Taylor Bray will speak, and after he is done, then Chris Klieman and Athletic Director Gene Taylor will take the podium and take questions. So more on this to come as the show goes on. We'll take a quick time out here. We'll wrap up the hour with some thoughts on KU's loss to UConn last night on the hardwood. Just, break things up a little bit and wind down this first hour on 580 Sports Talk. Thought from Mark H in the YouTube comments as we come back to wrap up this first hour of 580 Sports Talk. I think this is the right opportunity for all involved, Klieman, Klein, and K-State football in general. Hopefully it'll all work out for the best. I think that's where I'm at too, Mark. We're going to hear from Chris Klieman and Athletic Director Gene Taylor coming up in the 4 o'clock hour. We'll carry that press conference from Manhattan in its entirety. Told it's a pretty full room for that press conference, the Steel and Pipe Center there in the Veneer Complex. KU lost to UConn in basketball last night. Did want to get to this because this was going to lead the show until Chris Klieman announced his retirement. We had planned a very different show for you today, but that's the beauty of doing sports talk radio. Sometimes news happens and it throws a wrench into your plans. So I did want to get to the KU game last night. They had a substantial lead in the first, second half, not a double-digit lead, but they led by 6 with 14 minutes to play. They end up losing 61-56. They were up 44-38 with 14 minutes to play. And the sequence that followed before the media timeout, which Bill Self might have waited a possession too long to call a timeout. But from that stretch where Trey White made a pair of free throws to make it a 6-point game, this is how it went. KU got a stop, but they gave up 3 offensive rebounds in the process. Then Elmarco Jackson took a step back 3 on the next possession. That didn't go in. Alex Caravan hit a 3 for UConn to make it 44-41. Late clock, Flory Badunga contested hook shot. That missed. Caravan got a second chance bucket to cut it to 1. Late clock, long 2 from Elmarco Jackson. That's just a terrible shot. That went begging. Caravan scored on the other end to make it 45-44. UConn, their first lead at that point since it was 9-7. Then Melvin Council drove kind of wildly to the basket. He missed a layup, and KU gave a foul to get to the media timeout. Not on purpose, but there was a foul called on, I think it was McDowell, and I took it to the media timeout. That was a stretch. UConn's making a run. That was the stretch where you missed Darren Peterson the most. That's the difference. KU's defensive energy, I thought, was pretty good. UConn hit some long shots. They hit some NBA range threes, stepping back off of screens to kind of bust KU's switches. They did a good job breaking that down on the ESPN broadcast. And they just had a few more bucket getters than KU did on the floor last night. KU's bucket getter watched the game from the sidelines. And in a situation like that, or even the situation down the stretch after Melvin Council's 3 made it 55-54, KU had 2 chances to regain the lead and had missed threes from McDowell and Tiller. Again, Jamari McDowell 3-point shot. No thanks. I don't want that. I don't want that as the conclusion of a possession. Those are the spots in the game where you notice that KU doesn't have their best guy. Those are the scenarios that are crying out, not just for a guy who can score, but for a guy who can control the scenario. And Darren Peterson is the kind of player who can put the game on a string in those spots and say, all right, 6-0 run for 7-0 run for UConn. They got the lead. All right, I'm gonna get this one back here. Let's run a little something. I'm gonna go get this, and not in a me ISO ball kind of way, just in a playmakers make plays sort of fashion. That's what KU was missing. KU's got a lot of pieces I think you feel better about now than you did before the Peterson injury. Council starting to find it a little bit, although not his 3-point shot yet, unfortunately. Trey White is really settling in. Badunga, I thought, played pretty well again. Didn't have to go up against Terrace Reed, who was out with an ankle, but I thought Badunga was all right. Defensively, you hold that UConn team to 61, you feel pretty great. You needed a bucket getter to right the ship, to calm the waters. You needed that steady hand, and they just didn't have it because that steady hand doesn't have a steady hamstring yet. But when Darren Peterson comes back, and I feel extremely confident in saying this, KU can be more than fine. They're going to be really good. And while that loss doesn't allow you to build your resume, that loss is also not going to hurt KU when it comes to tournament time and those kinds of things, because the committee has admitted they take into account injuries when they weigh teams' performance. In the 4 o'clock hour, we will go live to Manhattan for Chris Klieman's retirement press conference. We'll do What Is Wrong With You whenever we get to it, but the 4 o'clock hour will be spent talking more about Chris Klieman's retirement announcement and hearing from the former head coach of Kansas State on 580 Sports Talk. Let's get it. Hour number 2 of 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. Thanks so much for being with us here on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Dan Lucero and Spencer Dupuis in with you. If you're watching the video stream, you saw I had a moment of panic before we went on the air here. Couldn't hear anything in my headphones, so I said sometimes there's a switch that gets unclipped that I have to tell Spencer when I get into the main studio. I say, Spencer, can you flip that switch? And he kept flipping the switch, and I kept not hearing anything. And I look down, I'm adjusting my volume. I'm still not hearing anything. I look down over to the left, and I see the headphone jack, and I see a pair of headphones plugged in that are not the pair of headphones that I am wearing. So that's one of those ID10T errors, I think the kids say. This me being an idiot. So that's a little bonus for you video viewers, which we have quite a few of today. We appreciate you checking out the program today on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk. Why don't you go ahead and click that subscribe button while you're there. When we get to 900 subscribers, we're going to do 580 Sports Talk Idol, which is going to be a whole lot of fun. And so you can help get us there by hitting that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed to our YouTube channel.
We've added 3 since the show started.
Terrific. That means we've got 27 more to go before we get to 580 Sports Talk Idol. That's awesome. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for being a part of the audience today here on the program.
Thanks for listening to our Spotify as well.
Yes. If we turned up on your Spotify Wrapped today, we can make some time maybe to talk about that later in the show. But if you're a listener on Spotify, if you find the podcast version of the show on Spotify at 580 Sports Talk, we appreciate you. We got some of the metrics back on that. Apparently, we are huge in Switzerland
and the UK.
They adore us in the United Kingdom. Anyhow, thanks for listening. However, whenever, wherever you listen here on 580 Sports Talk. Obviously, the big news today: Chris Klieman announcing his retirement from coaching after 7 seasons at the helm of the Kansas State football program. K-State won 54 games and the 2022 Big 12 championship under Chris Klieman. In fact, 3 years to the day of that 2022 Big 12 championship game, Chris Klieman announces his retirement. We will hear from the now former head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats and athletic director Gene Taylor here in just a few moments. Right now, Taylor Brait is at the podium. He is speaking about the recruiting class today. It's the signing day press conference that was originally scheduled for today before the news broke that Chris Klieman was going to announce his retirement. Again, I don't want to say slapdash fashion of it, but it all unfolded a lot quicker, I think, than maybe Chris Klieman or Gene Taylor or anybody with Kansas State would have liked to, because I don't think the mission was to overshadow signing day today. I think that's probably the last thing you want to do, actually, if you're a head coach, is to have your big news overshadow National Signing Day. Unfortunately, that is kind of what is happening here. But
I do hope, and I'm presuming that it was made clear to the people signing, this is our plan. Because that would be not great if, like, these kids signed and then on Friday, all of a sudden, if it went to that plan. So you're getting a new coach.
That's what Kellis Robinette, the Wichita Eagle Kansas City Star, reported, is that they were originally looking to do this on Friday, that they were originally hoping to hold any announcement that they might have had until Friday of this week, but USF kind of blew up their spot a little bit because USF wanted to hire Collin Klein. And so they were itching to get a coach in, and they needed an answer from Collin Klein, which meant Collin Klein needed an answer from Kansas State. And Klein got his answer, and now all reports, all indications are that he's headed to Manhattan. So that's, if you want to be mad at anybody today, I don't know the name of the USF athletic director. And look, you can't really blame them either. That's the nature of the business. It doesn't do you any good to be like Lane Kiffin and lie about the nature of the beast, because it is difficult and it is not necessarily fair or equitable in all ways, but it benefits a program to get a coach in as soon as possible. And USF lost their coach last week. Alex Golesh taking the job at Auburn. So they wanted to move quickly to get a coach in, as any program would in that scenario.
Rob Higgins was really itching to get a coach in there.
Was that his name?
Yes.
Rob Higgins? Okay. Rob Higgins is the villain here. You want to make a villain, his name is Rob Higgins. Anyway, they wanted to hire a coach, and they were interested in Collin Klein. I had found it interesting. And I thought the two jobs that made the most sense for Collin Klein, if he were going to take a head coaching job, and this was when we presumed that Chris Klieman would be back in Manhattan for an 8th season, which I think was probably a fair assumption. And the only thing that planted seed of doubt in my mind was that post-game press conference at Utah. That was when I started to think, okay, maybe they don't want to do this any longer. Maybe he's starting to feel like a guy who's not going to do this a whole lot longer. But I thought the two jobs that made the most sense for Collin Klein were Oklahoma State, if you wanted to get into the Power Four, and Colorado State, if he just wanted to get his feet wet in the head coaching realm, because Colorado State is near Loveland, Colorado, where he grew up and played his high school football. And both of those schools ended up with, I think, pretty good hires. I think Oklahoma State did well to get Eric Morris out of North Texas. Colorado State hired Jim Mora Jr., who's been winning at UConn, which historically well nigh impossible. So those schools did pretty well, but I was still surprised that there hadn't been more smoke around Collin Klein as a candidate, or no reports that he'd taken interviews or anything like that. But my anticipation, and we'll find out here momentarily, because Taylor Brait has left the stage, meaning the next people we'll hear from in Manhattan are Gene Taylor and Chris Klieman. As soon as they start talking, I'm going to shut up and I'm going to let them talk. But I think, again, given the unique nature of the personal relationship, I don't think there is a closer relationship between a coach and an AD in America than the relationship that Gene Taylor and Chris Klieman have. I think this was a discussion that was probably ongoing at least for a week or two before the end of the season. That this was a discussion, that this was something that maybe Chris Klieman had been feeling. I don't think he woke up on Monday and thought, you know what, I think I'll decide on my future this week. I think this has been percolating. And if it had been percolating behind the scenes, then Gene Taylor's not doing his job if he doesn't put the bug into Collin Klein's people's representation's ear and say, hey, look, I might not have a football coach here in 2 weeks. And if I don't, it's got to be you, man, or they're going to run me out of here. They're not going to be happy with me if I don't hire you.
Well, I think, too, it kind of goes back to the health problems that it perceived that he had last year, where he had to come off the sideline and they didn't see. And he said it in the statement, personal health. So I'm assuming we're going to hear a little bit more on that. And maybe we will. And that's Klieman's prerogative. He doesn't have to share those details with us. But the fact that he alluded to that in his statement in the release suggests that that does, or that has played a role in his decision to retire at a fairly young age. 58 is a young age for a coach to retire. When you think about some of the older coaches that are on the sideline, how long some guys have coached, well into their 60s, even into their 70s as well. We are hopeful to... I just saw him pop up on the screen, but he hasn't sat down
Okay, yet. The camera's rattling here, and yes, it's a standing ovation for Chris Klieman as he enters the room. So we're going to go live now to Manhattan, and we're going to hear from the now former head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats, Chris Klieman, in his retirement press conference live from Manhattan here on 580 Sports Talk.
Wow. I can't thank everybody for being here. It just goes to show me and prove to me that the good guys win, and doing things the right way and doing it with class and doing it with integrity is the right way. And guys, that's the K-State way. And it's been an emotional day for me. I am at peace. I've had so many colleagues, former players, parents of current players, text, call to congratulate Rhonda and I. And it's why I'm in this business, is to have that impact, not just on a kid that plays for you, but on a parent, on a support staff member, on everybody that you touch. And that's leadership to me. Leadership to me is how many people you can impact on a daily basis and make sure that's a different person every day. And as I retire after close to 35 years in this business, I've already visited with our players, but I'm one of the lucky ones. I spent 15 years at the last 2 stops, and that's a rarity. And I know some people in here have had that ability, and it's unique. It doesn't happen enough anymore. And relationships with players, impacts on people that reach far beyond this game, that's always been my passion, and that's always been my burn, is trying to continue to impact people. I believe that, and believe and lived like this, that players play for coaches that care. Coaches coach for coaches that care, and a support staff supports a head coach that cares. And I hope everybody that's come across me, whether it's players, support staff here at K-State or places I've been, have said, I will say this, that guy cares. And he's going to have my back. And I'm not going to throw people under the bus, and I'm going to continue to love them. I'm going to challenge the heck out of them, but I'm going to love them. My entire coaching life, I've put other people first. And for the first time ever, I'm putting Rhonda, Devin, Haley, and Colby first. I got to express my gratitude to and thanks to Gene Taylor for believing and entrusting this program to me. It's hard to believe it's been nearly 7 years ago that Kenny and Preston and Starkey came up and picked me up. They'd never been so cold in their life in Fargo. And we flew down here and started a journey that it's been almost 7 years. And I took this job with little to no Power 4 experience. But I had a guy that believed in me and loved me. And I'm proud of what we accomplished in these 7 years. Won a Big 12 championship. I think we had eight or more wins, and there's 8 teams in the country that had that for 4 straight years. And we made it to a bowl game 6 out of 7 years at a place like Kansas State. And we did it with hard work. We did it with dedication. We did it with the right kind of people, and we had everybody with both feet in all the time. And that's not just players, that's coaches, that's support staff, that's everybody. I'm a big believer in being defined by a moment, not a body of work. And thanks to all the great players, thanks to all the great support staff, thanks to all the great coaches, I look at my 5 years at North Dakota State with great players, great coaches, great support staff. We won 4 national championships in 5 years. Look at my 7 great years here with the accolades we talked about. And as a head coach of Division I in 12 years, I'm damn proud of the body of work that all of us put together. And guys, I'm not going anywhere. It's not a funeral for me. And I told the guys that. And you know, I've always said this when I come into this room after a tough loss: do not walk around eggshells on me. Don't do that. We're gonna celebrate my career. We're gonna celebrate. I'm gonna be around here next week for the players. I'm gonna get out of here this weekend with my family and go see my kids. But I'll be around here next week to visit with all our players and answer those questions of those guys. But I can't thank all of you enough. I can't thank all of you enough for being the people who you are and for allowing the Kliemans to come into Manhattan and build something here. And Gene and I talked about this a couple of different times. I followed Craig Bull at North Dakota State after he won 3 consecutive national championships, and people said, don't you dare follow Craig Bull. And we won 4 or 5. And I followed the greatest coach, in my opinion, in the history of college football, in Bill Snyder. And everybody said, don't want to do that. And I said, I just followed a guy that won 3 in a row and we did okay. I'm ready to go to work. And I think we did a pretty damn good job here. But guys, I'm gonna depart you now and let Gene kind of run the rest of this. But I love everybody and I appreciate everybody. And thanks for everything, guys.
So that was head coach Chris Klieman. He has left the press conference rooms. That's the last we'll hear of him. But now Gene Taylor speaking in Manhattan.
He gets up here all stoic. I get up here all emotional. I'm a mess. I've been a mess all day. See, that's why it pisses me off. You just saw one of the greatest guys in this industry walk out of this room and retire from coaching, from the business that he loves. And what really pisses me off is he's doing it because where we are in this industry. And if we don't get this thing fixed, and I mean, I'm a part of that, as every AD in the country and the conference commissioners, if we don't get this thing under control, more really, really good guys like Chris Klieman are going to walk away from this business. And I've already seen some of my colleagues do it because they just aren't ready to deal with what we're dealing with. We have to get this thing under control. We have to sign these participation agreements, every school in the country. We have to come together and run the business as equally as we possibly can. And right now, that's not the case. And people are ignoring the settlement. They're doing things that are outside of the settlement, outside of the agreement, and we need to get it under control. If we don't, more good people like Chris Klieman are going to leave this business. And I'm going to do everything I can to make sure in my role as athletic director here and at some of the committees I'm on in the country to make sure that we figure out this thing out. But it really hurts me that guys like Chris Klieman are leaving because what they came into the business for is different. Doesn't mean it's wrong. It's just different. And we have to find a way to make it as fair as possible across this country. And right now it's not. So that's my soapbox for a minute. I'll answer any questions you guys have. And by the way, I really appreciate all the staff that's here. And I think it means a great deal to Coach that you guys came, and really appreciate it from my heart too that you guys showed up for him.
What was kind of the timetable when this all started to fall in place?
You know, we didn't really say anything. We didn't really talk until Monday. He and I got together Monday morning. And at that time, he still hadn't really decided. He just talked through some things, where he was mentally, where he was family-wise, and said, Gene, I just got to take a couple of days. He was really committed to making sure that he really spent time with his family and thought through it. And as his faith is, prayed on a great deal. And then he came in this morning and said, I'm ready. And he said, the biggest thing that made me feel really good is he said he was at peace. And that felt good for me.
Can you talk about the process of finding a replacement?
Well, you know, it starts now. Obviously, I haven't done anything. I haven't talked to anybody. I wanted, to give Coach his respect and his due and let him talk to his team. And now as I told the team this afternoon, the business is different now. It's going to be fast. It's going to be efficient. And we need to move quickly. And we've already got all the things we need to be in place. So when we get to the point where we're ready to make an offer, that things can happen very quickly. And I think we need to make it happen quickly for the players and the staff so they know where the next direction is we're headed.
What should Coach Klieman's legacy be after his 7 years here?
Well, he touched on it, right? I mean, people thought I was nuts because I hired my drinking buddy from Fargo, North Dakota 7 years ago, and it worked out pretty well. And, for him to, walk in, I told him this in the interview process. I said, you're going to have to drive down a highway that's named after one of the greatest coaches. You're going to have to walk into a stadium that's a statue of one of the greatest coaches. And you're going to, every time you look up in the press box, pissed off at your coaches in the box. It's going to say Bill Snyder Family Stadium, and you're going to have to be okay with that. And he was. And he not only built on Coach Snyder's culture, he put his own mark on it, and he brought in this very similar kind of players and staff that this place believes in and knows can be successful. And I think he's done it with class and dignity and won. You know, a lot of people didn't think an FCS guy could do, and so he should be very proud of that.
Does he intend to coach the bowl game?
You know, we haven't gotten that far. He really wants me to talk to the players first and see if their interest is, and I'll do that. I think tomorrow is get with the leadership and see where they are from a bowl perspective, and then we'll go from there.
Gene, just how trying do you think this season was on Chris?
I think obviously it's pretty trying. I mean, if you saw him after the Utah game, and I think that was when I first, actually, it was my daughter who said, "Are you concerned about Coach Klieman?" And at that time, I wasn't. I figured it was just the emotion of that game. You know, he wanted to win that game so badly, and I think how it ended really frustrated him for the team. And I think it just kind of, but I think at that point is probably not that point. He's probably been thinking about it a little bit, but you know, after the season, he and I typically don't talk about anything till after the season. And so I texted him Sunday and I said, "Hey, do you just want to get together Monday?" And he said, "Yeah." So I was expecting a different conversation, to be honest with you, when he walked in Monday. I thought we were going to talk bowl and staffing, whatever the case may be. And he said, "I got something I got to get off my chest." And that's where we went. And it's been the crazy 48 hours since.
Did you try to talk him out of it at all?
I did. And then he talked about his family and his health. And then I said, that I just pretty stopped me in the tracks. And I just said, "You know what, this is your decision. And I'm not going to try to talk you out of something that you feel is that important for you and your family."
Kind of moving forward with you guys absorbing Wildcat NIL, how do you think that will help in attracting a successor?
You know, I don't know that it'll have a major impact. Obviously, they did a great job for us in the interim, not in the interim, in the Wild Wild West. I thought Curry and those guys were great, and they were aggressive. I think for now it's just about what can we do. You know, obviously the rev share piece, we have that. We're going to meet always have the minimum or the maximum number of rev share dollars, and now it's about going out and finding dollars for true NIL. And I think we have to get aggressive. And I think as a staff, we've got a plan in place to do that. But we're, like you said, we're going to do it the right way. We're gonna make sure we're doing things the right way, and that's never going to change here.
Contract wise for Coach Klieman, just wrapping it up, is that something that has to be discussed over the next couple of days, or do you know?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's going to be around, and those kind of things. We'll figure that out after he takes some time with his family and comes back next week, and we'll let him visit with the players, let him do his football stuff, and then he and I will get together and wrap that up at some point. You could probably afford 2 mics at some point.
Obviously, there's reports of a successor out there. Just how do you go about talking to the players about your process and maybe what they're seeing on social media? I
always find it amazing that this has happened before, that somebody's already hired the guy, and I haven't even had any chance to talk to anybody yet. But, I just told the players the same thing. I said, my job as an athletic director is to figure out what the next steps are. And, my commitment to them, and as my commitment has been to other teams that we've made changes were made, that we're going to go find the best coach for this program and this culture and this institution. And we're going to do it the right way. And that's going to be the major focus. The major focus isn't about me or winning the press conference. It's about these players, this culture, this team, and finding the best fit for that. And whether that takes 2 months or 2 weeks or 2 days, in this environment, it's going to happen a lot quicker and a lot more efficient and a lot faster. So that was my message to the players, that I made a commitment. I told them, I've done this a few times. There's a guy in the room that's never been a head coach before, and he's pretty good at the sport of basketball. When Craig Bowl left out North Dakota State, I wasn't sure who I'd hire. I hired a guy that, his only head coaching experience had been in a small college. Like he said, I told him, I said, I'll never forget this. We were sitting in my best basement in Fargo, and I told him, I said, Coach, you're going to be taking over a team that just won 3 national championships. There were 25 seniors on that team, and they finished 16-0. And he said, well, what are my expectations from you? I said, my expectations are that, you try to win 7 or 8 games and get us back in the playoffs. He said, what are the other expectations? I said, the fans' expectations, you go win a national championship. And he did. He won 4 out of the next 5. And so when I hired him here, because we had the similar conversation. He said, what are your expectations? I said, you're placing a Bill Snyder. He kind of worked out pretty well. And so I have experience in finding the right people for the right positions and doing everything we can from the support system to make them successful. And we're going to do the same thing this time around.
Just given how close you and Chris have been throughout all this, is retirement something that's weighed on your mind at all, too?
What time is it? Yeah. I mean, it has been. I mean, I've been doing this a long time. I'm not, 50 years old anymore, but I'm still committed to doing. I mean, there's a lot of people in this room that I care about, and I want to keep working until I feel that, we have everything in place that we need as a program to be successful. And I think we still have some things we need to do. We've got the rev share, but we've got to keep that going every year. We have to find true NIL and extra NIL dollars. Those are probably the next things we're going to commit ourselves to. And then at some point, I'll look back and say, okay, and I've talked to my buddies who've retired, Gary Bart at Iowa and Bubba Cunningham at North Carolina, and some of these guys, and they said, you'll know when the right time is. And right now, I don't feel it's the right time. Have I thought about it? Absolutely. Hell, we bought a home in Arizona, and every time I go out there, I think, this is a pretty good deal. I maybe should probably just stay here for a while. But I'm not ready yet, and I want to make sure that because of where I am in my experience, I have some chance to sit on some committees now that can help make some decisions as an industry that can maybe put us in a place that we're going to be better off. But I'm not quite ready yet.
And with the next coach, is there anything you think you'll stress with that person about what it'll take to get this team back to a Big 12 championship level?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's really just finding out from them what they think is what it's going to take. I mean, they're the football coach. I'm not a football coach. And so I'm going to ask the question, what do you think you need? What are some things you're going to need to be successful in today's, era? And that's the conversation I'll have with that candidate or those candidates and say, tell me what you think you need. And my guess is a lot of the things that they think they're going to need, we already have in place. And then from there, it's just, once we make that decision on that coach, help them put together that staff and the things they need. But I'm not a football coach, obviously, but I understand the culture here and what it's going to take to be a fit in this place, in this wonderful place. And that's the first and most important thing, is finding that right fit. And the rest of the thing kind of starts to fall in place after that. Frank, you haven't retired yet, but you look pretty relaxed back there. Yeah, I guess.
Any other questions for you? On the successor, you talked about, has there been a point of contact reached out yet? And has that phase begun? And when do you expect it to begin?
No, like I said earlier, I have not, and I was going to wait to get all through this today for Chris. And when I probably go back into my office, I'll probably start making calls. But I haven't talked to anybody at all yet.
Going back to your opening comment or what you said at the beginning, are there enough like-minded people like you to get this business where it needs to be?
Yeah, my colleagues in the Big 12, because I put a text out and I just said, Coach Klieman, one of the best guys in the business, left, and here's why. And I said, if we don't, and I've got thumbs up from just about everybody in the conference. And I talked to other colleagues in other conferences, and it's just, there's so many moving parts right now and so many things out there that aren't accurate. But there are people with really loud voices right now that are trying to keep this thing from being put in the right place. Today in Washington, D.C., they're trying to pass the SCORE Act out of the House. I'm not going to get way into the details, that could be the first step. It's still got a long ways to go, but we all have to come together and speak off the same sheet of music. And right now that's not quite happening. And there's some pretty loud voices out there that are trying to do some things that aren't in the best interest of the industry, in my opinion.
Just
I know you already mentioned that Coach Klein, his main decision, or the main reason behind his decision was because of the state of college football. But was there any movement or potential movement in the coaching carousel around the country that might cause this to happen now?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we've never had that conversation. And, I think it was a personal decision for him. It really came down to his family, to where he was mentally, and just really wanting to take a step away from it right now. But it really was more of a 100% a personal decision on his part.
How was that locker room when you addressed it earlier today? It seemed like you guys were hoping to make this announcement later in the week.
Well, we was here. It wasn't the locker room. We just met with him here. It's quiet. I mean, it's a time of uncertainty for everybody in the room. Anytime there's a change, the players, it was actually, that's what he said. He walked in, this isn't a funeral. And the guys were really, really quiet. They were kind of sitting there like that's what they were. And so, they were respectful. And then when I said my piece, we just got up and walked out. I mean, these guys are really good dudes, and they care about the program. And, I just ask them to be patient and not do anything, not make any rash decisions. Let us get through the process. And I think they all, they kind of nodded their head, and we'll go from there. So,
Gene, I'm sorry to.
Like I said, I think I'm going to start with the players. Like, to me, that's, if they have a desire to play, then we'll take the next step. But I think I have to really start with the players and just kind of see where they are with it.
Sorry to belabor this again, but just because there's so many reports on the Texas A&M side that say that Collin has been connected to this job, you're saying the K-State has not had any conversations with him about this opening?
Absolutely not. I'm not even sure if I still have his number, but I guess I better find that out at some point.
Any other questions?
All right. Thanks, everybody.
So that was Gene Taylor speaking after Chris Klieman addressed the media in Manhattan. Chris Klieman announcing his retirement from coaching after 7 seasons at Kansas State. Gene Taylor says he's not even sure if he still has Collin Klein's phone number. I bet he's got his I bet he's got his email. Maybe they're friends on Snapchat. Maybe that's how they communicate. With regards to the reports out of Texas A&M, we're going to play some Mike Elko press conference audio for you later on this hour. K-State's playing it close to the vest, and they probably have to for reasons. But Mike Elko sounds like a coach who knows he's losing his offensive coordinator pretty soon. So we'll get to that a little bit later on. But we are overdue for a break, and we are overdue for What Is Wrong With You. So a moment of levity after an emotional press conference in Manhattan. We're going to do What Is Wrong With You when we come back from this time out here on 580 Sports Talk. We'll have more reaction to the Chris Klieman retirement press conference, what he and what Gene Taylor had to say here in just a little bit. But right now, it's time for a moment of levity. We have What Is Wrong With You, 2 new stories competing today to try and take down our current weekly champion, the 3 folks who were doing it in a Winn-Dixie parking lot in the Florida Keys at 12 noon on a Saturday.
Do you want to hear something kind of funny about this story?
Is there something additionally funny to 3 intoxicated people doing the nasty in the parking lot of a grocery store?
It's a show that airs on our station here, Markley, Van Camp, and Robbins.
Yeah, the afternoon guys. Yeah.
Yes. Apparently, the one guy, the millennial guy, used AI to create a song about this, and it played it back on their show earlier today. As I was in here getting ready for the show, I heard it.
Glad we boiled the ocean to make a song about the Winn-Dixie threesome. Anyhow, we got 2 new stories today. I'm going to give you mine first. You ever hear that old joke about the wallet inspector? You know,
No.
you say, hey, I'm the wallet inspector. I need to look through your wallet. And they give you their wallet, and then you run away with the wallet. You're the wallet inspector. Don't get fooled by the wallet inspector. We have a gentleman in Evansville, Indiana, who got fooled by the gun inspector. Evansville Police Department officials say a man is in jail on robbery and unlawful handgun possession charges. According to a press release, officers were dispatched to the 2500 block of Sunburst Boulevard in reference to a holdup in progress. Officials say the caller reported her boyfriend was robbed of his firearm. On scene, the victim told officers the suspect, later identified as David Johnson, asked to see his firearm. Police say the victim gave the gun to Johnson unloaded. Johnson then asked for a magazine to see how much the gun weighed loaded. After loading the firearm, Johnson pointed it at the victim and told him he would not be getting the gun back. Police say Johnson fled the scene, but was later located by officers, taken into custody. He has prior criminal convictions that prohibit him from possessing a firearm, and he was charged with robbery with a deadly weapon, unlawful carrying of a handgun, and possession of marijuana. Obviously not smart to be a felon or a criminal in possession of a handgun if you are prohibited from doing so. But honest to goodness, so what is wrong with you? Is the guy, oh, sure, I'll let you see my gun. Oh, sure, I'll let you load my gun. Yeah, that's fine. Brother, you're not getting that gun back.
Nope, never.
He fell for the wallet inspector trick. Oh, man. I just... Brother, you hand somebody a loaded gun. What do you think is going to happen?
Exactly.
All right. That's my story today. Simple, short, sweet. What do you got?
We're going to Vero Beach, Florida, in an attempt to avoid arrest. A man allegedly sprayed 8 sheriff's deputies and 1 canine officer with bear repellent. Kyle Young, 31, was charged with 8 counts of battery on an officer resisting an officer without violence. According to an affidavit, the Indian River Sheriff's Office obtained a warrant for Young's arrest and attempted to contact him as he walked along a road in a wooded area. He allegedly ignored the deputies' orders to stop and yelled to be left alone. After deputies chased Young to a parking lot, he continued to ignore their commands to get on the ground and put his hands behind his back. So deputies attempted to use a canine officer to get Young to comply. When the canine, I believe Jeffy, made contact, Young used a can of bear spray on the animal, and the spray also dispersed towards 8 deputies. A deputy then used a stun gun on Young. He fell to the ground, and deputies saw he was carrying a firearm. According to the arrest affidavit, he allegedly was diagnosed with bipolar, schizophrenia, depression, and anxiety. Told officers he had not been taking his medication. All officers impacted by the bear repellent, including canine FA, were treated for chemical exposure at the scene. Young was taken to jail after being cleared to the hospital, was detained on a $57,500 bond. His arraignment scheduled for February 20th of next year.
I would say that wasn't very smart of that guy to do that. The other one wins. There's no mental illness involved, so kind of by default, but also you fell for the wallet inspector trick with your gun. I still don't think that beats I'm calling the story Winn-Dixie. It's a pun that plays better in print than it does on the air. I'm not sure I could actually get away with the spelled pun on the radio, but you get the point, right? Because there were 2 men involved.
Yeah.
It's plural. It's not called the Winn-Dickie, right? Anyway, I think that continues on.
Yeah, it does.
As our weekly champion. Now, what is wrong with you? We'll take a break. When we come back, Gene Taylor says he hasn't talked to Collin Klein. Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko seems pretty sure that Collin Klein's not going to be his offensive coordinator anymore. So, draw your own conclusions next on 580 Sports Talk. .449 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer with you. We're here till 6 this evening on 580 Sports Talk. Just heard earlier this hour from now former Kansas State head football coach Chris Klieman, who today announced his retirement, and from athletic director Gene Taylor. There's a lot to unpack from what Gene Taylor had to say. I was a little surprised and frankly a little disappointed that Chris Klieman did not hang around to answer some questions. So any questions about Klieman's thought process were answered by Taylor, though, again, if any AD has insight into the thought process of his head football coach, it's Gene Taylor having insight into Chris Klieman's thought process because, again, of the closeness of that relationship. Gene Taylor says they don't have a successor lined up. They've got to move quick. Haven't made any phone calls. Gene Taylor says he hasn't talked to anybody. When he was specifically asked about Collin Klein, he made a joke about not even maybe having his cell phone number anymore. But that's been widely reported, multiple sources, that Collin Klein is the choice to replace Chris Klieman in Manhattan. Texas A&M head coach Mike Elko spoke to the media earlier today and was asked about Collin Klein during his press conference. And here is some of what the current Texas A&M head coach, Collin Klein's current boss, Klein, the OC of the Aggies. This is some of what Mike Elko had to say here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask as well. I know the timing's kind of weird, but with the reports out today on Collin Klein, just didn't know if that was something that you guys were anticipating, or kind of your reaction to kind of what that situation's like right now.
Yeah, I think it's probably not solidified in any way, shape, or form yet. Certainly the reports tend to proceed the official notifications, but I think when you hire really good people, opportunities like that will come. You appreciate that people want to stay part of your program until the next big opportunity for them comes. If we're doing this right, it will be a piece of it, no different than losing players to the NFL. You'll lose coaches, you'll lose position coaches to become coordinators, you'll lose coordinators to become head coaches. I think what you're trying to avoid at all costs is losing really valued assistants to go be assistants at other programs, right? And that's not this case. And so if it does turn out to work out like the reports suggest, obviously it's a tremendous opportunity for someone on our staff to take the next step in their career. And I try to do everything I can to support and help those endeavors.
So that would suggest
Yeah.
that the wheels are in motion, at least on one side of the relationship between Klein and Kansas State being consummated. It's a good answer from Mike Elko, too, that, you always want to see people grow and advance, whether that's a player going to the NFL or an assistant becoming a coordinator or a coordinator becoming head coach. You always want to see people advance and grow. And it's complementary to the operation you have when that happens. And really like that answer from Mike Elko. I don't by habit listen to a lot of press conferences. That was a really good answer. I'm kind of impressed by that from Mike Elko. And that sounds very much like someone who expects his offensive coordinator to become a head coach in the very near future. Again, based on what is being reported, it sounds like Klein would stay with Texas A&M through their run through the college football playoff. The reporting earlier today, though, also was that Chris Klieman was going to coach Kansas State in their bowl game, but apparently that has not been finalized either. Gene Taylor saying he wants to talk to the players before making a determination on that. Can't imagine the players would have an issue with it, but it would certainly infuse some meaning into the Independence Bowl or whatever third-tier bowl Kansas State is going to end up in after their 6-6 regular season. Anyway, we'll take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll wrap up this 4 o'clock hour, set the stage for the final hour today on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. More reaction to the retirement of Chris Klieman from a current player with a local tie. Former Hayden Wildcat Des Purnell taking to his X account to post, "Thank you, Coach Klieman, for everything you've done for me and this program. Grateful for the lessons, the culture, and the belief. Enjoy retirement, Coach." That's from Des Purnell. Picture of he and Coach Klieman embracing on the field during Senior Day festivities on a snowy day in Manhattan last Saturday. Chris Klieman announcing his retirement. We'll do some more reaction to that coming up in the 5 o'clock hour, including Gene Taylor's strong thoughts on what he referred to as the reason behind Chris Klieman leaving not just Kansas State, but calling it a coaching career at a fairly young age for the profession of 58. And we'll have some thoughts on that. And also, is Klieman the best case scenario in the history of being the guy who follows the guy, especially a guy of the stature of that guy who the stadium is named after in Manhattan. Not sure you could have asked for much more in what is never an enviable situation in any major sport, being the coach that follows the legend. We'll get into that a little bit later on as well. We're also going to hear from another living coaching legend, Andy Reid, the head coach of the Kansas State Chiefs, spoke to the media earlier today. We'll play his press conference remarks, and we're also going to get you some headlines coming up here in the 5 o'clock hour, including the Chiefs-Texans participation report, some college football recruiting news on this National Signing Day, some more coaching carousel news as well. That's all coming up. But right now, as we go to break, I'm looking for caller number 3 to 785-272-9429. Caller number 3, I'm going to set you up with a family 4-pack of tickets to see the Topeka Scarecrows at the Stormont Vale Event Center on Saturday night. Scarecrow Hockey. Family 4-pack of tickets for caller number 3, 785-272-9429. We'll have more 580 Sports Talk coming up after the news here on 580 WIBW. You are caller number 1. Let's get it. Final hour of the day here on 580 Sports Talk on the Sports Voice of Kansas, 580 WIBW, FM 104.9, online at 580WIBW.com, and in living color on our YouTube channel, 580 Sports Talk, and our Facebook page, WIBW News. Thanks so much for being with us. I am Dan Lucero. Spencer Dupuis is across the glass, taking you up again until 6 o'clock tonight here on the program. Coming up at 6 o'clock tonight, over on our sister station, Country 106.9, your home for the Ichabods. It's the Washburn Basketball Coaches Show. Voice of the Ichabods, Brendan Dworzinski, will chat with the coach of the second-ranked team in Division II men's basketball, Brett Ballard, along with Laura Westling, coach of the Washburn women, as they prepare to open MIAA play this week. The Ichabods are at home Thursday night and Saturday afternoon for their first two conference games of the season. Tomorrow night against Nebraska Kearney and Saturday afternoon against Fort Hays State. You can catch, of course, all of that action on Country 106.9, mycountry1069.com, your home for the Ichabods all season long. What you should really do is go and check out the renovated Lee Arena and watch them play this weekend. But if that's not possible, give them a listen. Give Brendan a listen and follow the Ichabods all season long on Country 106.9. It is that time of year. We had high school basketball last night, our first 580 Preps high school basketball coverage of the season. Really good boys game last night at Seaman High School. Seaman knocking off Piper 83-75. Piper winning the girls game over Seaman 64-41. Friday night, our first 580 Preps Friday night game of the week of the new year. More United Kansas Conference action from the Charger Dome as Topeka West plays host to DeSoto. We'll be on the air approximately 5:30 with the pregame coverage of that one, myself and Larry Latimer on the call. Still to come in this final hour of the day today, we'll have some more reaction to the big news of the day, the retirement of Kansas State head football coach Chris Klieman, announcing his retirement after 7 years at the helm of Kansas State. Obviously a long and successful career that led up to that, as well as a coach at North Dakota State, where he won 3 national championships as the head coach, and other stops as well. The resume is really impressive for Chris Klieman, and it's been a remarkable career, and it comes to an end today as he announces his retirement. Earlier on, we played the press conference. If you missed any of that, it'll be on our podcast, 580 Sports Talk, 580WIBW.com, on the podcast page, or on our Spotify podcast. You can find us on Spotify, 580 Sports Talk. Maybe it's too late for us to show up in your Spotify Wrapped. Did you see? You're a Spotify guy too, right? You're not Apple Music.
Yeah, I'm a Spotify guy,
Okay.
and I don't like my Wrapped.
The only thing I care about, the only thing I'm interested in. So this year it did a new thing, and for those who maybe don't stream their music or have a different app or whatever music app you have, they give you like a year-end recap of all the music. But it's not the end of the year. That's what bothers me. I don't want to see it on December 3rd. Like, I'm going to listen to a bunch of stuff in December and maybe have a most played song that's different at the end of the year.
Give me January 5th.
I'm saying, like, I'll even take.
I get it takes time for them to get all this data and
right
make all these things and make sure they've got the artist to give you a video. And
I'll take I'll take it December 31st.
Or that, yes. Like, give me up until like the 15th of December.
Yeah, I would prefer that. But this year they did a thing that was like your listening age, like how old you are based on what you listen to.
Mine's 19.
Yeah, mine was also 19. We're young at heart, fans. We're younger. Also, it was very funny at the end. They had like we figured out what day you listen to the most music and what day you listen to the most different bands and kinds of music. And what was very funny is the day I listened to the most music was the day I drove to Dallas for the Big 12 tournament.
Oh, wonder why.
And the day I listened to the most different kinds of music was the day I drove back from the Big 12 tournament. I wonder why. And I knew it right away, too. I looked at those dates. I said, I bet I know what I was doing on that day. You know, I can also say that I am relieved for the sake of appropriate data collection that we use my wife's account to listen to my son's songs. Yeah. Not exclusively, but enough that Dreamy Daisies, Heavenly Melodies of Rest doesn't show up as my most played playlist of the year. That's a relief for me. It will be accurate someday. That's the sleepy time.
Hold on, I haven't even put it into perspective. I think maybe The Day I Drove to Hutch was one of mine.
Yeah, that's probably right.
I haven't even put that into perspective, but it sounds about right when I look at the date.
So, anyhow, that's something that went on today. Probably people were sharing it on their social medias that you might have seen.
In
But
fact,
how do
the
we-
day I drove to Hutch was my most nostalgic day.
How about that? If any of you genuinely, if any of you listening have us on Spotify as one of your top 5 podcasts of the year, take a screenshot and text it to us, 785-272-9429.
Put it
or
on.
send it to us on X at 580 Sports Talk or on Blue Sky 580 Sports Talk. If we are in your Spotify Wrapped and you can prove it, you can text us or send it to us on social media. We'll hook you up with something. I don't know, like tickets to something. We'll hook you up if we're in your if we're in your Spotify Wrapped. So you can text us 785-272-9429. Anywho.
Shout out to you in Switzerland and United Kingdom.
Yes, the other countries that we are most listened to in the UK and Switzerland. I've always been big in Switzerland. I've always had a really big following there. Anyway, so more on Chris Klieman's retirement coming up a little bit later on this hour. We're also going to hear from Andy Reid, the head coach of the Chiefs. He spoke to the media earlier today.
For a good amount of time for Andy.
Yeah. So we're going to hear from Andy here in just a little while as well. But we are going to start with our 580 Sports Talk announcement. The remarks you heard Klieman and Taylor speaking live from the dais, but I thought Klieman's quote in the press release was worth revisiting. After many deep and thoughtful conversations with my family, we've decided the time is right for me to retire from coaching. This decision was not taken lightly and was a culmination of many factors, including my own personal health. I absolutely love coaching the game of football and developing players into young men, but now is the time for me to step away and spend more time with Rhonda and our 3 kids. I truly am thankful to Gene Taylor for trusting me with this program in 2018. We've accomplished many great things, including winning the 2022 Big 12 championship. K-State will always be a special part of our family story, and we will forever be Wildcats. I got to tell you, the part that hit the hardest in his remarks, in Klieman's remarks, was the portion where he said, I put other people first my entire head coaching career, and for the first time, I'm going to put Rhonda and my 3 kids first. Like that's that really hits, and it hits. I think if you have a family yourself, if you've made sacrifices and maybe chosen things for yourself instead of for the sake of your family before, I think you can relate to that just a little bit. So that was very striking, I thought. And I'll say this too. Again, this is radio's not a visual medium, so you heard Chris Klieman's remarks, but on the off chance that you saw them. And I don't know if you necessarily did or not listening there, so I can only describe for you what I saw. Chris Klieman said he was at peace, and he looked like a man who was at peace. He looked like somebody who was 100% comfortable in the decision that he made. Now, he was moved by the response, the standing ovation that he got in the room, the Kansas State Athletic Department staffers that were there to honor him. Jerome Tang was there. The head men's basketball coach was there and participated in the standing ovation for Chris Klieman. That was obviously very moving to him, but that did not look like a person who had made a hard decision. That looked like somebody who felt like, yep, I'm doing this and I'm at peace with it, and I know it's the right thing for me, and I know it's the right thing for my family. And honest to goodness, good for him, because a lot of times in that profession, you don't get to choose when you're done. A lot of times in sports, player, coach, whatever, if you are in sports, if you make sports your life work, a lot of times you don't get to choose when you're done. The work chooses for you. They quit offering you a jersey or a clipboard. They quit offering you opportunities. If you can stand back and say, I did good work at the place I was at, but I'm ready to be done. I'm ready for the next phase of my life. And to get to do that on your own terms, I'm happy for Chris Klieman today. I really and truly am. The Wildcats won 54 games during 7 seasons of Chris Klieman's tenure. That's the most among active Big 12 programs. During that time frame, 6 total bowl appearances are tied for the most among active Big 12 programs in that time frame. The Wildcats are one of just 2 active Big 12 programs to advance to the postseason each of the last 5 seasons. Also, this is noted in the press release, Chris Klieman never lost to Kansas. And I know that matters a great deal to those of you of the purple persuasion. Some comments from the text line. Again, you can get at us on the text line, 785-272-9429. Had a texter ask, is Chris Klieman going to coach the bowl game? That has not yet been decided. Chris Klieman didn't speak to that. Says he's going to get away. He's going to be around for a week, and then he's going to get away with his family. Obviously, we don't know K-State's bowl destination. We don't know at this point. I think there are not enough bowl-eligible teams this year, so there's nobody right now on the outside looking in. But teams that have been bowl-eligible have declined bowl games before. I don't think Kansas State's going to do that, for the record. But, we don't know yet what bowl game Kansas State is going to play in. Gene Taylor said he was going to leave it to the players. He was going to talk to the leadership council on the football team tomorrow, and it will be the players' decision as to whether they want Chris Klieman to lead them out one more time or whether they would want to play under an interim coach. Again, I can't imagine the players would deny Chris Klieman the ability to coach one more game if that's what Chris Klieman wanted to do. So this is not... They're not running him out like the texter says. They're not running him off like Lane Kiffin. That's not what's happening here.
Probably far from.
Yes, probably the exact opposite. Yeah, this is nobody's showing up at Manhattan Regional Airport to MF him or hold up middle fingers. Even though people were not happy about his performance this last season and may have been discontented the last couple of years, like we have a text here from the 785. I'm glad Klieman's out. He had a way of losing easy games. They did lose some games as a double-digit favorite. It seemed to be an annual thing. They did it the year they won the Big 12 championship. They lost at home to Tulane. Tulane ended up being really good. That by the end of the season, that didn't look like a bad loss at all. But at the time, they were a double-digit favorite at home, and they lost that game. And that was an unfortunate recurring theme for Kansas State. I should also point out that in Klieman's tenure as a double-digit underdog, they had a winning record. They were 3-2 as a double-digit underdog under Chris Klieman. So there's that too. Anyway, yeah, I think you can, and I understand it given the way the last 2 years went, given how disappointing the last 2 seasons have KU and a conference championship, which again, that is not the kind of thing you're ever going to be able to take for granted in Manhattan. Ever in any sport ever. Are you going but a net plus? But some people's socks are always wet.
Yeah.
So that is the
53 in Kansas City. The move becomes official today that Josh Simmons heads to the IR. He had wrist surgery. They have brought up Issa Pole. I believe it's Issa Pole. He was in training camp. They hope to get him on the practice squad, but he got scooped up by the Jets, and the Jets recently released him. He rejoined the practice squad a few weeks back, and now he is on the active roster, taking that 53rd roster spot for Simmons. Practice today. I got to pull it up here. I thought I had it up.
The participation report?
Yes, I thought I had it up, and it's right. Well, I thought I had it, but all right. The only players that did not practice for the Chiefs today were Trey Smith, Jawan Taylor, and Chris Roland Wallace. As I mentioned, Simmons officially off of the roster, so he doesn't have to be on there. no one was limited in practice for the Chiefs. Seeing a full participation was Brian Cook dealing with his ankle injury. Noah Gray dealing with a concussion / shoulder. He was a full participant. Jaden Hicks dealing with the shoulder, full participant. George Karlaftis dealing with a thumb injury, full participant. Patrick Mahomes, they're classifying this week as a knee injury. He is a full participant. Isaiah Pacheco, knee, full participant. Nico Remigio, shoulder, full participant. And Rashee Rice, hamstring, full participant. If you look over to the Texans, they've got a bunch of guys that did not practice. Will Anderson, to name a few. Tim Settle Jr. didn't practice. Limited practice for Azeez Al-Shaair, the linebacker, but they have some injury problems for them. Trent Brown, the offensive tackle, didn't practice, as well as Danico Autry. Is it Autry or Autry? Autry, the defensive end, among players that did not practice.
Kamari Lasser didn't practice. That's a big deal. Woody Marks didn't practice. He's been the starting running back, taking over for Nick Chubb. Yeah, they are a bit walking wounded. They at least have C.J. Stroud back and no concerns after he returned following being in the concussion protocol in their game. But, yeah, a lot of injury issues for the Texans. And I got to tell you, the Chiefs should be so lucky if Will Anderson can't go on Sunday, because it's one of Wanye Morris or Jalen Moore trying to block that dude, and there are better players than them who can't block Will Anderson. So
you almost hope Juwan Taylor's able to give it a go, and you can shift more to the left tackle side.
You certainly hope that were the case, but typically when guys don't practice Wednesday and it's not an illness or a vet rest day, that means they don't make it to Sunday. Like I am hard pressed to remember a player not practicing Wednesday who makes it all the way back to play on Sunday. That's so it's uphill for Trey Smith and Juwan Taylor, and obviously Josh Simmons out for at least 4 weeks. So not the greatest news, but that's good to see that Brian Cook was a full participant. Chiefs really missed him on Thanksgiving when he went out with that injury. So good to see that he would appear to be on track for a return. Some more headlines for you as we continue on here on our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Let's go to the NFL and television ratings. As expected, a lot of people watched the Cowboys and the Chiefs on Thanksgiving Day.
Most ever.
How many people? The most people to ever watch a regular season game. 57.2 million people sat down to watch the Cowboys and the Chiefs on Turkey Day. The Packers-Lions game was the second most watched game in league history, 47.7 million.
How do we get 0.23 million people?
That's 230,000 people.
Oh, wait, yes. Yeah.
It's not 57.96 people. Like, what's 0.96? Yeah, right. It's 230,000 people. 57,230,000. That's how you interpret that. Numbers. The game shattered by 36% the previous league record, which was a game between the Giants and the Cowboys back in 2022. Audience peak at 61.36 million for the conclusion of the Chiefs-Cowboys game. This is why the league wants the Chiefs to play on every holiday. This is why the Chiefs want the Chiefs to play on every holiday. That would be the front office, not like the players and the coaches, who I think are kind of over it. But 57.23 million is a huge, huge, huge TV audience for that game. And that is, again, that's why things are moving in that direction. Give me another headline, Spencer.
Yeah, so this came out while, I believe in the last hour, the Ravens have come to an agreement with tight end Mark Andrews on a 3-year, $39.3 million a year extension. And I don't understand. This guy's having like the worst year of his career, and it's on a downslide of his career. He's only averaging 27.7 yards a game. That's nearly 12 lower than what he averaged last year. I don't get it.
And he's 30 years old.
30 years old.
Yeah, and Mark Andrews been a good player. Like, he's had a really good career. Not a Hall of Fame career, but he's had a very good career. Like, I don't know if the Ravens have like a Ring of Honor or a team Hall of Fame, but like, he's one of those guys for sure. I don't know that any other team in football would have been lining up to give him $13 million a year and $26 million guareed.
I mean, like all the numbers are dropping.
That feels like they bid against themselves a little bit. I look, I understand on one hand rewarding your guy, right? Like Andrews has probably been fairly underpaid as those things. Most tight ends are. Like Travis Kelce.
Yeah.
Travis Kelce was underpaid for the bulk of his career. That's why he got a raise late in his career from the Chiefs. But that's Travis Kelce. Like, I understand Andrews is important to the Ravens, not just from a leadership perspective, but also like for much of the season at a time. He's the only guy Lamar Jackson trusts. But that is a lot of money, even like relative to the salary cap going up. It's a lot of money to give a declining player who's also dealt with some injuries.
His yards per reception is just crazy. He started as a rookie at 16.2, 13.3, 12.1, 12.7, 11.6, 12.1, 12.2, and so far this year, 9.
Yeah, he's in Jason Witten territory.
That's a big drop-off. 3 yards a catch is a big drop-off.
It is. And, yeah, his yards per target has plummeted as well to 6.4. So not catching as many targets. His success rate is way down. Yeah, everything pointing in the wrong direction for Mark Andrews. That doesn't sound like the kind of player you give $13 million a year for his early 30s.
No.
But, you know, hey, it's the Ravens. They don't have any other problems, right? The rest of that roster's totally fine. They're loaded. They're loaded for bear, right? They got no other.
I saw this and I thought it wasn't Mark Andrews. I thought I just read it wrong, that it was another player on a different team.
Yeah, that's wild. Anyway, let's do one final headline here from the world of college football. We'll circle all the way back to college football on this National Signing Day. The number 1 quarterback recruit in America flipped his commitment from Georgia to Vanderbilt.
Wow.
Jared Curtis out of Nashville Christian School. So he's a hometown kid. He's the number 5 overall recruit in the 2026 ESPN 300. Initially had committed to Georgia and finalized his decision to flip to Vanderbilt on Tuesday night. He will be the highest ranked signing in the history of Vanderbilt football. Chris Vanini of The Athletic pointed this out on Blue Sky last night. We had a listener, and I hope I didn't come off too strident in disagreeing with listener John, who commented in the YouTube chat back in the first hour. We were talking about Chris Klieman's retirement, and he says that his belief, the listener's belief, is that in the NIL and portal era, the top talent is going to concentrate itself on the best teams. Which, by the way, wouldn't be any different than it was before the NIL and the portal. Like, the best players go to the teams with the most resources, the best coaches, the best chance to get to the NFL. And those programs have always been the same programs. But Chris Vanini pointed this out on Blue Sky. Vanderbilt's getting the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country. The number 1 overall recruit is going to Houston. The top 10 recruits, the top 10 consensus recruits, are going to 9 different schools, including Maryland. So, in that way, couldn't you argue that the NIL and portal era has become the great equalizer and given more programs more access to talent? Because now you get the talent by paying up front.
Yeah.
Right. Cut the check. And you too can have the number 1 quarterback in the country. You too can have the number 1 player in the country. If Houston can get the number 1 player in the country, I've been saying for a long time, Houston's a sleeping giant of a football program. All they had to do was get the ball rolling in the right direction. There's money there. They got that old Southwest Conference 1-2. Tillman Fertitta writes some big checks for that basketball program. They won 9 games this year. I don't think anybody noticed. They won 9 games. Willie Fritz has it cooking, and now they got the number 1 player in the country coming next year. Look out for Houston football is all I'm telling you. So that is my point, that actually you can look at this era of college football and say, well, actually now the top-end talent is becoming a little bit more evenly dispersed.
Exactly.
We'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to hear from Andy Reid. Haven't talked much Chiefs today for obvious reasons, but Big Red did speak today. We typically play his Wednesday comments. We're going to do that when we come back here on 580 Sports Talk. 5:33 on 580 Sports Talk. Dan and Spencer with you. Chiefs are back to work facing the Texans. It's do or die the rest of the way for the Chiefs as they enter the week 6-6 and outside the AFC playoff picture. Head coach Andy Reid spoke to the media earlier today. Here's what Big Red had to say.
All right. The guys that will not practice today are Roland Wallace with his back. He is making progress. And then Josh Simmons ended up having surgery on that wrist for a fracture and a dislocation. He'll go on to IR, and then we'll just see about the recovery on that, where it goes from there. And then Trey and Jawan won't practice today, but they're making progress going forward. Look forward to the challenge of playing the Texans. Good football team. D'Amico's done a great job down there with that crew. And so we know we've got to have a good week of practice, and the guys were in here today beginning that part. So anyways, with that, time's yours. Asapoa, by the way, will take that spot. Yeah, he'll be the one elevated.
Coach, just on Josh's front, he's been through so much kind of stuff this year. How disappointing is it for him? And how's he kind of doing on the emotional side of this about having to go down for a while?
Yeah, so listen, your kid loves to play football, and that's that part. He's depressed about that part. That's probably the wrong word to say, but he's down about that part. But he's upbeat. I mean, the surgery went well, which was a real positive, and so he feels good about that. And then it's just a matter of coming back. He's did a great job with his knee coming back. He's a worker, so he's whatever he can do to rehab it, he's going to do. That's just how he rolls. So, but yeah.
So the potential view here is hopefully have him available for the postseason. Is that what you're probably looking for?
Yeah, we'll see how that goes. They've got to wait just a little bit on that, Herbie, and see how that goes with his recovery. But there's always that chance. Yeah.
And with Trey and Jawan, Jalen and Wanda are probably the ones in line to step up. And Mike Downing too. How have you seen them evolve over the course of your practice with the play time?
Yeah, I mean, the one positive is two of the three of them played against them last year, so did a good job. So they know what they're up against. That's a great defensive front. Great defense. I mean, all three levels are really good, and they're number one in a lot of categories there. So defensively, but those guys they're getting themselves ready to go. Yeah.
A couple of moving parts there now on the offensive line. Is Jalen Moore going to be the first man up over on left tackle, or are you visiting probably right tackle with him?
Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with the injured guys first. But yeah, that would probably be he'd probably be at the right tackle and Wanya at the left if that's the way it went. Yeah.
Coach, how important has Creed Humphrey been to these last couple of years?
Yeah, all pro helpful. He's a great player there, and a great person, stable. So just you're gonna get the same thing every day, and he's gonna prep the same way every day, and he's dirty, tough, and strong. So smart.
And when you look at just the fourth quarters that you guys have had, you guys have been in every game, even the ones we've lost. So do you do something different to work on the execution in those moments?
Yeah, what we need to do is take care of some of the little things, the penalty things. They take you out of drives, so you're not scrambling, as you go there. You gotta clean that up, and then some of that got to give the guys the right plays to try to execute to their strengths. So coaching's part of it, playing is part of it, and we all have a piece of that pie. You surely against good teams, you can't have this discrepancy here. Distance between the other team's penalties and your penalties. That shouldn't happen that way in a football game, right or wrong. So I'm not saying they're all correct. I'm just saying when one team's got a bunch and the other team, that's not good for anybody.
You guys were able to get away for 3 or 4 good days. I guess as you approach these last 5, what was the message to the team as you attack it?
So it buys coaches time to go back and give them some answers to things, and which is a positive, and then let's go. So you're in the month of December, and you're still in it. So let's go. That's what's important.
You mentioned it on Monday, but how do you get the pass rush going?
Yeah, well, I can't tell you exactly, but I mean, we're going to try and make it better. To start with, you've got to win some individual battles, and but there are other things that Spags has that he uses there too. So
You mentioned their defense gets after the quarterback pretty well. What specifically is it about Houston's defense that you've seen especially over this past little bit, where they've gotten hot?
yeah, so well, it starts up front. They've got an active front, and I think their linebackers likewise are tuned in. They can run, tackle, very sound that way. Their back end, likewise, they've got talent on the back end. All three levels, they're solid, and I think they all work together. So they've done a nice job.
Leon, you mentioned positive attitude a lot, tactics with positive attitude. I'm sure there's times where you want to keep going, keep them in the battle a bit. Why is it important right now for you guys to maintain positivity?
I'm big on reality. What's real? Why are we where we are? What can we do to fix that? So that's what I look at, and try to give the guys that so they have something to work on. Likewise, as a coach, that's how I look at it for myself, for the coaches. Where are the problems, and let's work on fixing those. And if you do that, it takes your energy to get it right, and that's what we're striving to do.
I guess what do you see with the reality of this team right now?
Yeah, that we're very close. So we just got to take care of business. I mean, whatever I say here or whatever I say, it's what you do, and that's where you're at. So you gotta do it and fix the issues there, because we're very close.
Matt?
Coach, what are the chances we could still see Najee Johnson from injured reserve come back before the end of the year?
Yeah, we'll have to see on that, Matt. There's always that chance, but we'll have to see where that goes.
You mentioned Foles is taking a good spot. I guess would you guys like to get him back here, and how confident are you in his ability?
Yeah, we thought we saw some talent there, and he knows the scheme, obviously, and we thought there was some growth. He could be a guy that works in somewhere. Yeah.
Good. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Good. Thank you.
That was Andy Reid from earlier today in Kansas City. We'll take a timeout. When we come back, we're going to have some final thoughts on the big news of the day. Chris Klieman announcing his retirement as the head coach of the Kansas State Wildcats. That's when we come back here on 580 Sports Talk. 544, just about, on 580 Sports Talk. Jumped the gun. Thought it was going to flip over to 544, but it was 543.50. I was 10 seconds early on the nuclear clock here. 544 now on 580 Sports Talk. Dan Lucero, Spencer Dupuis with you on this Wednesday. Chris Klieman, no longer the head coach at Kansas State. He announced his retirement earlier today. I know there were some conflicting reports early on in what has been a whirlwind of a day around the Kansas State football program, especially when you add in National Signing Day being today. There were some reports early on that Klieman was going to step down. And obviously, that's different than retiring. Retiring feels like a closed door for a next job. And maybe that is the case. Maybe Chris Klieman has decided that he's done it long enough and done what there is to be done in the profession. 3-time national champion as a head coach at the FCS level. Conference champion at the Power 4 level with Kansas State in 2022. Maybe there aren't any worlds left to conquer for Chris Klieman as a head coach. And maybe the health issue that he alluded to in his statement is of a nature where the stress of head coaching is best left in the past. And if that is the case, I hope Chris Klieman finds a beach and doesn't leave. Finds a golf course he likes and joins and becomes a member. And lives where he wants and does what he wants and enjoys a well-earned retirement. But he's also 58 years old. And he wouldn't be the first retired coach to get the itch to get back into it. Now, and I'll tell you this, if he sent out a feeler to FCS or even, a school in a conference like the Mountain West or the new Pac-12 or something like that, hey, I got the urge. I'd like to come back into coaching. He get an interview. You can be damn sure of that. But again, Chris Klieman looked totally at peace in his press conference today with the idea of not being a head football coach anymore. Looked totally okay, looked relaxed, just his demeanor was different than it was after any of his post-game press conferences this season.
And you said that was probably going to happen, right? Or you said that could happen, right? Seeing him, I think the last 2 seasons specifically, since pretty much I've been able to cover Kansas State, it seems like there's been something weighing on him. We discussed kind of what happened last year and then this year and then after the Utah game. And, just a lot of stuff has happened in the last 24 or I guess 20 months, you would say, back to the beginning, spring ball last year, whether that be on the field or in his personal life, clearly. So
yeah,
I think you see a man who probably doesn't want to leave, but probably knows it's the best thing to do. And in hindsight, if you look at it from an outer point of view, maybe in the end, it's going to help the program because it seemed like from an outsider perspective that has no affiliation to any Big 12 team, kind of seemed like things were maybe getting a little stale at Kansas State.
They had definitely underachieved the last 2 years. And
not stale might not be the right word.
It was definitely striking that, number one, Gene Taylor was much more emotional at the dais than Chris Klieman was. And that is not because Chris Klieman is a unblinking robot incapable of emotion. I mean, we saw
what happened.
Yeah, we saw after the Utah game. Like that's not a man who is ashamed of shedding tears in public.
His emotion probably came out on Monday in their closed door meeting.
I think he felt at peace. He felt relieved.
He said so. He said, I'm at peace.
Those were his words. He felt relieved. He felt relieved. I think that was what I judged from watching his part of the press conference. Gene Taylor had to compose himself before he started his remarks, and he said directly that Chris Klieman, the Chris Kliemans of the coaching profession are going to continue to leave the profession unless we get a handle on the NIL situation effectively and how that is handled, how that is managed, how that is enforced, and how that is regulated. And I have been consistent in saying that college sports has nobody to blame for this confusion and frustration over the NIL landscape, but itself. They had a chance a long time ago. They should have seen this train coming. They could have at any point before the House settlement tried to regulate common sense compensation for collegiate athletics, for college athletes, and they didn't. They dug their heels in, and then they got flattened by the oncoming train, and everybody's still dealing with those after effects. But at the same time, if it is true, I have no reason to think that Gene Taylor's exaggerating. Again, I think that he knows the headspace and the mindset of his friend and now former head coach better than anybody else would. That if Chris Klieman is not at ease in the current era of college athletics, if dealing with the NIL landscape is something that he does not enjoy, is something that he does not embrace as a necessity to field the best possible team that he can field at Kansas State or anywhere else, then he is doing Kansas State a service by stepping aside. And Kansas State is doing itself a service by going and finding a coach who will exist in that space and understand that even if they don't like it, it is part of the job. If I may quote, if I may quote Don Draper from Mad Men, that's what the money is for. That's why you make the big bucks. The big butts. It's been a long day, a lot of talking. My son didn't sleep. I'm throwing my kid under the bus. That was bad. That was a bad slip of the tongue. That's why you make the big bucks, right? To follow the rules, to exist in what is always an ever-changing landscape, an ever-changing sport, an ever-changing game of football. You either evolve or you get left behind. And Kansas State has felt like a program on the verge getting left behind. And we saw that starkly this season. The programs, in particular the program, Texas Tech, that most embraced NIL and bringing players in the transfer portal, dominated the league. And they're going to the playoff whether they win the title game in the conference or not. Everybody in the league rooting for BYU. They want that.
Yeah.
They want that extra payoff so bad. BYU definitely in if they win. So you get two teams in that playoff, man. Everybody's a Cougar. Everybody's a Cougar. Everybody's gonna put on the magic underpants on Saturday and root for them, unless you're in Greater Lubbock. But Kansas State has felt like a program on the verge of getting left behind. And if Chris Klieman wasn't the right fit, and if he knew in his heart of hearts he wasn't the right guy to change the course of Kansas State football and modernize the way that the program thinks about and engages with the transfer portal and thinks about and engages with NIL. And I think it's more the NIL part of it than the portal part of it, because Kansas State actually did fairly well in the portal. I think they gained more out of the transfer portal than they lost over the course of time. Not that they didn't lose some good players to the transfer portal, but they brought in some really good players, really useful players from the transfer portal over time. A younger coach with a different energy and a different attitude towards NIL and those kinds of things is going to be a net benefit for Kansas State. So, like I said at the very top, and I'll sum it up again here, Chris Klieman moving on sure looks like and sounds like it's the best thing for him. And I believe, even though I think he was a great coach, did great things, and any coach who wins a championship, a conference championship at that program, that's the first line on their epitaph. You won a conference title at Kansas State. Haven't been a lot of those. He won a conference title at Kansas State. That's a hell of an accomplishment. But it felt like for him it was time, and it feels like for Kansas State it's probably time too. We'll take one last break. We'll come back with a final word right after this. All right, time for a final word on this seismic day on 580 Sports Talk. Spencer Dupuis, what do you got for your final word today?
Yeah, I think we all woke up this morning and did not anticipate this to happen. Well, I guess some people did, because apparently it got out yesterday, late last night. I was on Twitter or X, and I saw Collin Klein is coming home, ? Like 3 or 4 different times. I was too tired to read into it. I thought somebody was just on a message board. But I think this is a seismic shift for college football here in the Sunflower State, And I think it's going to be interesting to see how the Kansas State athletic department kind of narrows this coaching search, because clearly there's one guy and it's not done yet, but it hasn't been talked. All these hoops that you have to jump through. But I think at the end of the day, when things shutter and we're 3-4 years down the road, this may be the best for multiple parties involved. I think Chris Klieman has poured his heart into that program, and you can see it the way that he reacts when things are going the way they are and when they aren't going the way they are. And I was down on the sideline when they won at KU, and just seeing him go over to the band director was pretty cool.
Frank Trace,
because that was the big, obviously a rivalry game, and then to find out that also Kleiman's retiring, that's wow, just a lot there. And I think we're going to look back on this one day, and it could be huge for the program.
Final word for me today is about Chris Klieman, who I don't know personally, certainly don't have anything more than a reporter subject sort of relationship with, somebody to sit in the peanut gallery and lob a question in a post-game press conference here and there. But I've always been impressed with Kleiman's character, his integrity. There's a lot to be said for running a clean program. There's a lot to be said for winning and losing with dignity. There's a lot to be said for winning a conference championship at Kansas State. Only 2 other coaches in history have done that, and they put one of the other one's name on the stadium and built a statue of him. That's how hard it is to do what Chris Klieman has done. You look at the whole full history of Kansas State football. To win 54 games in a 7-year span, to go to 6 bowl games in 7 years, to go to 5 consecutive bowl games, to win a conference championship in that span. There are a lot of programs that you think maybe have a higher station in college football than Kansas State who would have killed for the last 5 years that Kansas State had. So a salute to Chris Klieman, a good coach, a better man. And if retirement really is the long-term move, go enjoy it, coach. You deserve it. That'll do it for 580 Sports Talk today. We're back tomorrow from 3 until 6. For Spencer, I'm Dan. Good night.